So in this video, we will try to solve some JavaScript related interview question, particularly with the DOM manipulation and the event related topic. So this is the question sheet, and we will try to answer them and using the ChatGPT. Okay. So let's go one by one. So the first question is, how do you access and manipulate the DOM in JavaScript? तो JavaScript का जो DOM manipulation होता है वो कैसे होता है? So generally in the JavaScript we handle the DOM manipulation using getElementById or getElementByClass. वो एक तरीका होता है. From that we get the DOM element basically, and on that we perform our event. So if we have to add some event listener on some button, so we can add the add event listener. ये एक तरीका होता है. And or some change some argument or update the content into it. So let's search it. So let's search that on the ChatGPT. How do we do DOM manipulation in JS? So ChatGPT में हम देख सकते हैं cleanest and simplest explanation of how do we do DOM manipulation, all the commonly used methods example. So DOM manipulation basically is changing the HTML using JavaScript. So जो HTML अपना होता है उसको DOM बोलते हैं. उसमें अगर कुछ चेंज करना है बट यूजिंग JavaScript उसको बोलेंगे DOM manipulation. So what we can do in that is select the elements. means अगर कोई एक input box है बटन है उसको select करना है, that is selecting. Change the content. So suppose there is one paragraph, उसका अपने को content change करना है. So that changing will be change content, or some button text, that will be a change of content, change style. So for example, on click of the button, the button has to be disabled. So that we can call as a content or style change. Modify attributes. Modify attributes against, for example, disable हम कैसे कर सकते हैं? उसमें एक एट्रीब्यूट होता है disabled. तो अगर है तो बटन विल बी डिसेबल. सो मॉडिफाइंग एट्रीब्यूट विल बी DOM manipulation. Create and remove elements. So basically if you have to create some HTML element using JavaScript, फॉर एग्जाम्पल एक फॉर्म है उसके अंदर अपने को और एक एक्स्ट्रा इनपुट और चेक बॉक्स कुछ भी एक ऐड करना है, और एक सिंपल डिव भी ऐड अगर करना है हमको, तो उसको बोलेंगे क्रिएट एंड रिमूव एलिमेंट. ऐड इवेंट लिस्नर. अगेन ऐड इवेंट लिस्नर मतलब ऑन इवेंट we should listen to that event to perform some next action. So let's go one by one. Selecting element, as I said, document.getElementById. This is the most commonly used getElementById. There are other also, like querySelector. querySelector is used with the, this is example for the class one. Here dot mean the class para will be selecting that DOM particularly where class para is present. querySelector all is for, this will just select one, but this will select all, because wherever there is li tags, so it will select all the li tags. So this is how we can select the element. There is one more, I guess, getElementByClass also, but yeah. So this is the mainly use. Changing content. So once we select, here you can see we select and store it in the title variable. So on that we perform some action like title.inner text. इनर टेक्स्ट मतलब अगर टाइटल को हमने सिलेक्ट किया उसके अंदर का अपने को टेक्स्ट चेंज करना है. सो हियर चेंजिंग कंटेंट मीन्स उसके अंदर का टेक्स्ट चेंज हो जाएगा. इनर HTML इज फॉर चेंज द entire HTML in that HTML code. Here we just changing the text, here we are changing HTML code as well. टेक्स्ट कंटेंट, बेसिकली टेक्स्ट कंटेंट भी वही हो गया कि उसका टेक्स्ट है, उसका जो कंटेंट है, लाइक इनर टेक्स्ट जैसा ये वर्क होगा. न्यू टेक्स्ट बेसिकली. चेंजिंग स्टाइल, जो अगर अपने को CSS उसका चेंज करना है तो title.style.color, title.color style.background color, ऐसे हम चेंज करेंगे. दिस विल बी द वैल्यू, दिस इज द की एंड दिस विल बी द वैल्यू. ऑब्जर्व यहाँ पे की जो है वो कैमल केस है, लाइक बैकग्राउंड और कलर का C कैपिटल है, तो वो कैमल केस यूज करना है. कलर ये तो सिंगल वर्ड है इसलिए इसमें कुछ नहीं, बस सिंगल कलर है। वर्किंग विथ क्लासेस, सपोज वी हैव टू ऐड सम क्लास, तो टाइटल डॉट क्लास लिस्ट ऐड, इससे बहुत सारे हैं। टॉगल क्लास मतलब क्लास अगर रिमूव करना है तो ऐड क्लास लिस्ट डॉट ऐड, और रिमूव करना है तो क्लास लिस्ट डॉट रिमूव। टॉगल मतलब अगर है उसमें क्लास तो रिमूव करेगा, अगर नहीं है तो वो ऐड करेगा, लाइक ऐड रिमूव उसको बोलेंगे टॉगल। चेंजिंग द एट्रीब्यूट, सो एज आई मेंशन एट्रीब्यूट्स, फॉर एग्जांपल इमेज टैग में होता है एक एट्रीब्यूट कॉल्ड एज सोर्स। सो सोर्स का अगर सोर्स में बेसिकली हम देते हैं इमेज का पाथ, तो अगर वो पाथ चेंज करना है तो this is how we can do image dot set attribute, source will be the key of that attribute and image dot png will be the path। यहाँ पे अपना लॉन्ग पाथ भी हो सकता है, यहाँ पे सिंगल दिया है बट हाँ, अगेन फॉर disabled as I mentioned, for different HTML tags there are different attribute। So here you can see for image this is source attribute, for input it is disabled, और बाकी के लिए भी कुछ जैसे div के लिए हो गया, क्लास हो गया, ऐसे मतलब अलग अलग हो सकते हैं। और डायरेक्टली भी हम कर सकते हैं, रादर देन सेट एट्रीब्यूट जस्ट इमेज डॉट सोर्स इमेज डॉट png ऐसे। creating new element, so as I mentioned we can create a new HTML DOM element using this create element। so const div is equal to document dot create element, ये this will be the value exactly the HTML tag। यहाँ पे हम कुछ भी रैंडम नहीं दे सकते, जैसे h1 हो गया, div हो गया, span हो गया, तो what HTML tag we have to create that we have to give here over here। after that it will be saved in this div, this is a variable, and under in that we can add the text and basically append करेंगे document dot body dot append child, तो ये जो करंट डॉम एलिमेंट है उसमें ही अपेंड हो जाएगा, मतलब ऐड हो जाएगा बेसिकली उसमें। रिमूविंग एलिमेंट, सो div डॉट रिमूव, तो कंप्लीटली डॉम में विल बी रिमूव्ड। नेक्स्ट इज एडिंग इवेंट लिस्टनर, लाइक बटन क्लिक पे अगर कुछ इवेंट करना है या फिर इनपुट में अगर टाइप करेंगे तो कुछ इवेंट होना है, सो दैट विल बी एडिंग दैट इवेंट। सो इवेंट लिस्टनर विल बी फर्स्ट इज द इवेंट नेम basically click, and next is a function, so on that click what operation has to be performed, so next is the callback function। Here we have used arrow function, you can use normal function as well। So different event can be click, input, mouse over, key down, change, etc। So there are multiple events for different kind of HTML tags। Modifying DOM tree, insert before another element, so parent dot insert before new element reference node। तो अगर पर्टिकुलर एक नोड के पहले हमको अगर कोई नोड इंसर्ट करना है तो वो बेसिकली ऐसे करेंगे, ये बहुत ही रेयरली यूज होते हैं अपेंड चाइल्ड, तो हम इस पे नहीं जाएंगे। बेसिकली हम क्लोन भी कर सकते हैं, कोई एलिमेंट अगर सेम उसका एज इट इज कॉपी रेप्लिका बनाना है तो वी कैन क्लोन दैट HTML basically tag and later we do changes। Summary, so interview ready, so DOM manipulation means selecting element with methods like getElementById, querySelector and modifying them using properties। okay, so चलते हैं नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन पे। explain event handling in JavaScript। So basically event handling means whenever user performs some event, so how we handle that event is called as event handling। Handling means we have to perform some operations, so that was my answer, let's check the ChatGPT answer। Explain event handling, so let's see what ChatGPT tells। so basically interview ready application, the different method bubbling capturing real life usage। So event handling means writing JavaScript code that's respond to user action, so what, as I mentioned, when user performs some action we have to handle that event, so what I told is correct। So basically different type of event user can perform, like click event, mouse over, key press, input and key press are different event basically. Submit, so submit is used for form. Scroll, जब हम scroll करते हैं वो, that will be one event. Load, when an event happens, JS runs a callback function called as event handler. So as I mentioned, when some event is performed, so there will be a callback function. Inside this we write the code or operation that will be performed after the event will happen. So why do we need event handling? Because websites are interactive. So as we know, web should be interactive. So event handling is very important basically. So there are three types of event handling. One is inline. So basically in HTML only we write the JavaScript code here over here, and we write the function in the separate JavaScript file. This is, as ChatGPT is telling, it is a bad practice. I mean very old practice. Using DOM properties, DOM में भी क्या होगा, बटन ऑन क्लिक ये फंक्शन हो गया, बट ये भी also very old. This is the recommended and best way. If you are using just JavaScript, I mean plain JavaScript, then this is the best way. Basically button dot add element list. So first we have to select that using the query selector or select, we mentioned in the so previously, query selector or select element by id, get element by id, that using that, and we add event listener, and then we write the event name and callback function. Okay. If you are using some library like Vue.js or React or Angular, so in that there will be different type of event handling. So those libraries provide some advanced thing, so वहाँ पे अलग रहेगा, but ये this is using plain JavaScript. Event object, every handler receives an event object, element that was clicked. ठीक है. Event propagation क्या होता है देखेंगे. So there are three phases which basically capturing phase, target phase and bubbling phase. So what is event capturing? So event travels from document, parent and target. So ऐसा समझिए कि ये एक पूरा पेज है, इसके अंदर एक div है, and under that there will be one input like this one. So when I click over here or type something like this, basically what happens, that event will happen on the main document as well, I mean main div as well. Later it will be coming under this body tag, later it will coming to this input. So ये it will be traveling from top level element to the main my child element. So document से लेके parent means in case of body, और इसके there will be multiple div, एक के अंदर div रहेंगे, जितने भी लेवल div रहेंगे उस सब पे ये होगा, and then इसके बाद target is last this child. So that is event capturing. Target page means when event reaches the element. So ये अगर जिस टाइम ये इस पे पहुंच गया, that will be target phase. Bubbling phase means reverse of this capturing. So when I type or some event happen on this one, it will again not just happen on this, it will happen on all its parent elements. So that is bubbling. So you can see target to parent, parent to document. डिफॉल्ट इज बबलिंग. सो डिफॉल्ट क्या होता है, बबलिंग होता है. पहले इस पे इवेंट होता है, फिर इस पे बॉडी पे, इसके बॉडी पे, एंड देन मेन विंडो ऑब्जेक्ट जो भी अपना डॉक्यूमेंट रहेगा. सो दैट इज बबलिंग. कैप्चरिंग इज रिवर्स ऑफ दैट. सो यू कैन सी इवेंट एंड इवेंट लिस्टनर, क्लिक हैंडलर, फॉल्स बबलिंग. ठीक है. स्टॉप प्रोपगेशन. सो स्टॉप बबलिंग, इवेंट का स्टॉप बबलिंग फंक्शन है, इससे वो स्टॉप हो जाता है. Event delegation क्या होता है, instead of adding event to multiple child elements, attach event to the parent and detect the target. So instead of there will be multiple li, so click handler, click handler, click handler. So rather than adding click handler to every list item, what we can do, we can just select the main target ul, add event listener to that, and under that we put one condition. If event target name is li, then some operation will perform. So like this is called as event delegation basically. तो इवेंट हम डेलीगेट कर रहे हैं, तो अगर वही मल्टीपल अगर सेम ये है एलिमेंट्स, तो उसके पेरेंट्स को कैप्चर कर रहे हैं, उसके पेरेंट को कैप्चर कर रहे हैं, एंड जस्ट पुटिंग वन कंडीशन देयर एंड देन परफॉर्मिंग स इवेंट ऑपरेशन. इससे अपना कोड भी कम हो जाएगा और इट विल बी फास्टर परफॉर्मेंस फ्रेंडली, राइट, rather than selecting hundreds of li. And then and the one thing is this li can be dynamic as well. मान लो कुछ लिस्ट है वो, उसमें अगर अपना डायनामिक ही आ रहा है तो तुम कितना ही सिलेक्ट करोगे, राइट. सो दिस इज अ गुड फीचर. कॉमन इवेंट क्या क्या है, देन क्लिक है, डबल क्लिक, माउस ओवर, माउस आउट, ये माउस के रिलेटेड है. जैसे कीबोर्ड के हैं फॉर्म इवेंट्स, इनपुट, चेंज, सबमिट. विंडोज के हैं रिसाइज, जूम, जो भी रहता है, लोड, स्क्रॉल. तो इवेंट हैंडलिंग इज ऑल अबाउट दिस. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज व्हाट आर इवेंट बबलिंग एंड कैप्चरिंग. तो ये अभी हमने देखा, तो विल नॉट गो इनटू दिस. इवेंट बबलिंग वाज when some event happened on the child, basically that same event is also happening on its parents till the body, and capturing is reverse of that. How do you add and remove event listeners in JavaScript? So we just saw event listener is added using add event listener. देखो ये मेथड है, और इस पे हम पास करेंगे द इवेंट नेम एंड द कॉलबैक फंक्शन. सो 52 is done. How do you prevent default behavior in an event? Okay, so event का basically इसमें हम समझेंगे कि default behavior क्या होता है. सो डिफॉल्ट बिहेवियर फॉर एग्जांपल एक होता है फॉर्म के अंदर. फॉर्म में एक इवेंट रहेगा सबमिट, देयर इज अ सबमिट इवेंट. सो बेसिकली व्हेन द यूजर क्लिक्स द सबमिट बटन और द basically submit button, a form will be submitted. So its default behavior is it will just go to the, I mean the form will redirect to the URL which we provided in the in form. There is, I guess, path or some attribute is there. Form, it will redirect to that particular page. So that is its default behavior. So if we have to prevent that default behavior, so what we do is we capture that event and we provide the prevent default. So that's how we prevent the default. So let's see, that was my answer basically. So let's see what ChatGPT tells. How do you prevent default behavior in an event? How do you prevent default behavior an event? See, the prevent default, that was I was talking about. Prevent click link. So link पे अगर क्लिक करते हैं जो नेविगेट होता है, हाँ, so that is also default. सबमिट, राइट क्लिक, हाँ, राइट क्लिक पे जो कंटेक्स्ट मेनू ओपन होता है ये. सो दिस इज इट्स डिफॉल्ट बिहेवियर. ड्रैग एंड ड्रॉप, हाँ, ड्रैग एंड ड्रॉप इज ऑल्सो इवेंट. सो इफ यू सिलेक्ट सम एंड ड्रैग, so that is a drag and drop. So it's default behavior if you have to stop. So prevent default is a method. ठीक है. हाँ, so that will be, first of all we have to catch this e. E is a event object we can see. So when we perform some event, the default object that we get is e. I mean that variable name can be different also. It can be e also, it can be event also, it's up to you. बट उसके अंदर रहेगा एक बाय डिफॉल्ट मेथड प्रिवेंट डिफॉल्ट. Explain event delegation and its benefits. So we just discussed the event delegation. Basically, when there are multiple same type of DOM elements, rather than selecting all of them, we just select the its parent, and under that we put some condition, and then we basically handle that event. So that is called event delegation. Benefit is, as we saw, less code and easy to maintain and fast to perform. Next is how do you create and trigger custom events in JavaScript? Okay, custom events. So my answer for this is custom event is, I guess, maybe this with the same add event listener, but I guess here we give our custom event name, and here again we pass the callback. So maybe that is the answer. Let me check the ChatGPT answer. How do you create custom events in JavaScript? Creating custom events in JavaScript is simpler and very useful when you want different parts of application to communicate without directly calling each other. Okay, so my answer was wrong. Using custom. Okay, I guess there are different way. तीन तो यहीं पे मिल गए, चार पांच. Okay, I guess there are different ways. Let's see one by one. Interpretation using custom events. So custom event constructor, modern and best way. Okay, so this is the best way. So basically what we are doing here, we are creating just one variable my event and new custom event. So this custom event is a uh, predefined function from the JavaScript. Here we are providing the custom event name, hello event, and we are calling the, I guess this is not a callback function. I guess this is some object. Okay, and here we are creating. Okay, we can pass function as well here. We can see. No, no. Okay, this is listening. Okay, to create a custom event, we give the event name. I don't know what is this. Detail message hello world. I edit 10. Okay, this is the data that we have to pass in that event. So basically, okay. Okay, so this is the data basically. Detail is a data, message, and ID. So here we can see event.details will be message and ID we are getting. So very simple. I guess this will be optional as well. Even if we don't pass it, this will work. So we'll see more about it later. Yeah, but this is how we create a custom event, and to trigger it, basically we do the dispatch event, my event, and on performing of that event, document dot add event listener, and after that event, what should happen. So this is under output will be, yeah, dispatching custom event from an element. So this was code level. I mean code, not from the element. This is from the element, like with the button help. So here we are selecting the button and we are doing some add event listener, but here we are giving my custom click, not our normal click. Okay, so custom event is fired. This is again add event listener is simple only. There is no, I guess, separate thing. Just rather than just click, we are just giving the different name. But to trigger this custom event, we are doing dispatch event. So we cannot just write the on click. So we have to write the dispatch. So sometime you want to event to the bubble to the online native. So we will not go into in detail of this. So very rarely used. So let's go to the next question. The thing we have to remember over here is this custom event constructor. Custom event constructor. Okay. Let's go to the next question. Custom event. Explain the difference between document.getElementById and document.querySelector. So as I mentioned in the beginning, getElementById is select some DOM element using ID. It's ID attribute. ID value has to be there. If ID value is not there, basically it cannot find that. It will return null something. Okay. And query selector, using query selector we can select using class name as well, using paragraph. I mean the DOM uh, tag name as well, or using I guess those are too common, using the tag name and using the class name. That was my answer. Let's check the ChatGPT answer. Difference between query selector and get element by id. Get element by id and query selector. Okay, so here is the cleanest and intuitive. Okay, short answer is selector type. Okay, as I mentioned, get element by id is only by id, and query selector is by any css selector. So css selector means with the class, with id, with uh, I guess in CSS selector we select nth number or child element like that. So we can do that also. It will return element if it is present or it will null. So and query selector, it will return the first matching element. If there are multiple IDs, cannot be multiple ID, there will be only one. So ID, it will be every time it will return one. For query selector, it will just return the first one, first matching. If you want all the matching, then you have to use query selector all. Speed is faster because it's single, only one will be there, and slightly slower because it will do the traversing. Syntax is simple, more flexible, multiple area, no. Okay, see, as I mentioned, query selector all standard, old and specific, modern. Oh, okay. Get element by id like header, and query selector we can do like with this is using id. Hash means id, dot title means dot means using class, div p span, so you can see the nested. So this will select the span which is under the div, which is under the p tag, and which is under div tag. Means p has to be under the div and the span has to be under this div and p. Or we can do the attribute selecting also. So wherever there is a type is equal to text, it will be selected. So query selector is very flexible in that way. So that is the main difference. Which one should you use? Selecting by id, and if you don't know the id, or there has to be some specific use case, then you can use the query selector. Okay, so that complete our DOM manipulation section, and for others we will continue the next section. Thank you.